beginning of the call. Hello, everybody. It's Monday, May 1st. Happy May Day. I think today's May Day, at least in some places in the world. And it's Jim Mansky.
Jory Mansky.
And we're, as usual, calling from Maui today. And I'm feeling, I've noticed a little pitter patter in my heart. And I got a little bit of a wound today. I don't know if it shows up on the camera, but I got smacked by a plant in the yard, I guess.
Boy.
And but I'm okay, no damage. Didn't even hurt. Didn't even notice it till somebody I was talking to on Zoom said, "What happened to your face?"
Smacked by what, Jim?
Like a plant. I must have been walking through the forest.
Oh,
And some plant reached out and grabbed me and wanted to give me a hug.
okay.
And how are you, Jory?
Oh, how am I? I'm feeling a little tired. I've been on my feet now for a few hours working, and I am also really happy to be here.
Talk some more while I finish making these groups. Or you make the groups if you want. I'll talk, but you can talk if you want to say
You have
something.
a lot more words than I do.
Okay. So let me just explain, especially for new people, what we do here. It's a practice group. So we practice nonviolent communication here. I for some reason, Josephine's name did not
Okay, I'll rename
do
it.
that. And so we practice 3 different ways, and today is really all about practice. There'll be just a little bit of information to share with you, but mostly it's about practice today. And there's 3 different ways we practice nonviolent communication here. One is self-connection, which is when we're using nonviolent communication as an inside job, working on our own, getting connected to our own observations, feelings, needs, and requests. And then from that becomes like a foundation skill for then working with empathy, the listening part of nonviolent communication, and honesty or vulnerability, the speaking part of NVC. So that's what we do here. And so I'll start right now with a self-connection exercise, unless there's something up for somebody else that wants to say something before we start practicing. Which brings to mind, how would I say something if I wanted to say something? So you can raise your hand, electronic hand, by looking on the bottom of your screen. And there's a little happy face down there that says reactions. And if you click on that, you can raise your hand. And there'll be lots of chances to try that. We encourage everybody to speak up during the class if it's something that you would enjoy doing. Go ahead, Allison.
Yeah, hi, Jim, Jory. I have been hearing in my mind a comment that I think you made last week from Marshall that was about spiritual clarity. And I think it was connected to the 0 spot, but I wondered if you might maybe at some point touch back on that. What was that about? It was really a rich comment, and then I've kind of lost how it fit in with where in NVC.
Okay, great. Yes, I'll be happy. That's definitely part of the little lesson that we have planned. So thanks for
excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody else before we dive into some self-connection? Okay. So let's just rest for a moment. I imagine some of you have already been having really busy days, doing stuff. Maybe you just kind of getting ready for the day if you're in India. And let's see if you can take a moment to pause. And if you're comfortable, just closing your eyes. And see what happens if you don't do anything. Just be. Just be right here, right now, and notice what you notice. You can do the same thing if your eyes are open. Just notice what it's like to be you right now. That's a really broad and vague question. So let's see how nonviolent communication can support you in having more clarity about how to answer that question. What's it like to be you right now? So first consider, what are you hearing? When I'm talking, you hear the sound of my voice. It's probably, maybe sometimes you can hear the birds singing here in the background. When we're not talking, you might notice other sounds in your environment. So just listen as if your life depended on it. And while continuing to listen, notice also the sense of touch. Maybe even just noticing what you can feel with your dominant hand. Kind of textures. You can even move your hand and touch different things if you'd like, just to get an idea of what it's like to experience textures and touch, what you touch with your skin. And while you're listening and touching, notice any aromas or smells that are present. Likewise with tastes. Maybe you were just sipping some tea or having a little snack, or maybe you just brushed your teeth, or there's some other flavor left in your mouth. And even though your eyes are closed, your eyes are still seeing something. Maybe it's the back of your eyelids. Maybe there's some patterns or colors that you notice. You can even open your eyes now. See if you can keep awareness of all these different channels of information coming into you. And if you're anything like me, you can't. There's just too much going on. So my brain just kind of focuses on something. And then any spare attention goes to something else. And then as you look around in your space, see if you can find something that has lasted, that has a sense of being around for a while in your life. Maybe it's an object that you really like, or a photograph that's precious to you, or a book that you're reading, something that's got a history with you. And as you connect with that object, just notice the thoughts that come up in relationship to that history. Just be present with those thoughts. Now we'll turn our attention inside again. So might be helpful to close your eyes. Helps me, but it's optional. And now we turn our attention to what's going on in terms of sensations in the body. There might be something that kind of stands out in terms of calling for your attention. Maybe there's a little ache or a pain or a sore muscle, something healing in you. Or maybe there's a buzz of energy. Maybe there's a sense of constriction or openness. Just be quiet for 15 seconds or so as you just notice how these sensations change. What you're aware of constantly changes. Notice how effortless it is, really, to notice sensations. They're just always happening. It's just a gentle shift of attention, a little inquiry. What am I sensing right now? If it's something uncomfortable, you can name it for yourself. Sometimes that supports presence and acceptance. So first, noticing sensations, naming them, then allowing them just to be. You might also be aware of emotions. Contentment, happiness, gratitude, irritation, annoyance, disappointment, sadness, anxiety, hope. And then see if you can connect these feelings, sensations, and emotions, see if you can connect that to your needs. What's important to you right now? Imagine that these sensations and emotions are like signals asking you to pay attention. Pay attention to what? Another way of thinking about it is what's important to you right now? Is it about, I'll make some guesses, is it about learning, growth, community, connection, fun, something else? So these questions are pointing us towards needs, these universal qualities. That's the energy of life that motivates us to do whatever we do. What would you like to feed today in terms of your needs? And then how would you like to do it? This is pointing towards the request piece of nonviolent communication. What would make your life more wonderful for the next couple of hours? What could you ask of yourself, especially? Jory's been busy making small groups for you to go and hang out with friends for about 12 minutes. And this is your opportunity to check in with one another. You can talk about what this exercise was like for you, what you learned about yourself, what your needs are today, any requests that you have.
And I suggest when you get into your room that you put your video on so people can actually see your face if you're willing. It's much more connective.
Yeah. We've heard this request from folks, and also seems to contribute to a sense of safety for people. So we understand here in the big group, you might not be recorded, but the small groups are never recorded. Okay, so we're going to open up these groups. There'll be, you'll see a timer in the upper right-hand corner of your screen that will count down from 11 minutes, and there'll be 1 more minute at the very end for you to finish up your conversation. So please support each other in making sure that everybody has a chance to speak. All right, we'll see you back here in about 12 minutes.
I think there's another person. Show that person.
In about 5 seconds.
Including me.
So
Okay.
Jim, I said, thank you for mentioning. I haven't stretched yet.
Oh,
So
good. Yeah.
set a
So-
time.
Carolyn and I are trying to remind each other to take care of ourselves. I just saw Shizuka stand up and take a little walk, and so feel free to stretch if you need to lay down or do some yoga while we talk. All that's fine.
Yeah.
Coming and going is also fine. Whatever
Yeah.
whatever you need to do to take care of your needs.
That's the beauty, actually. One of the beauties of being online. There's a certain level of freedom that you get when you're just in your own home in front of your screen.
Yeah. Yeah. So would anybody like to share anything about what's going on for you now at this point in our group? We've been here about a half an hour. Anybody want to share anything with the large group? If you want to do that, you can just raise your hand or you can put something into the chat. Love to hear a few voices about what's going on for you today. How are you doing? Hey, Sangeeta, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody from India. And I just loved your self-connection. From the very start statement of being in that now and just staying there and connecting to that now moment. It was so blissful. I also, you took me through a journey of 9.5 years in those 7-8 minutes.
Hmm.
I was able to come right to that last point of actually mourning the loss of the existence and how much my family mattered to me, my husband mattered in my life, and to not have them, that sense of belonging, that sense of just that love that I so mourn and so yearn for. And it just felt okay to be here in this moment, in this now. So I started off with that very lumpy feeling from that longing.
Mm.
And then every time I heard Jim's instructions, I was coming back to that now. And I was just swinging between this longing and this heaviness in the chest and that choky feeling from that longing to this coming back into that now. And especially when he asked us to check with, where are you? Open your eyes, check where you are. Oh, so I thought the grounding is over by then. And then again, he asked us to dive back inside. And then that was a beautiful checkpoint to again check. Okay, so I came back into that now looking around my room at my favorite object. And then when I checked back with the inner world, I noticed that that had diminished, that choky feeling had diminished.
Huh.
And that was the beauty of being in that now moment, of being able to switch between keeping my eyes closed to again opening it and again going back into the inner world. Beautiful exercise. Yeah.
I'm so glad it worked for you.
Yeah.
Something different today.
Yeah, I'm really
Thank
glad you
you.
enjoyed it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for it.
Yeah, one little piece of the exercise, I want to give credit. I was reading in the Daily Blues. That's what I call the news these days. I was reading in the Daily Blues an article by a man named Rick Hanson, Hanson. Rick is a mindfulness teacher, and I think he's some kind of a advanced degree. I can't remember which one, but he was talking about how scary impermanence is for many of us. And he was also talking about how, yeah, things are impermanent. The universe is gonna, as far as we know, we got another 14 billion years or so left until everything will change. So yeah, ultimately everything's impermanent, but notice the things that are more permanent in your life and appreciate them. Appreciate the sense of connection with some of those things and all the memories and connections that they hold. So I want to thank Rick for the inspiration today. Anybody else want to share anything? Love to hear at least one more voice. If you're willing to just share how you are today, what's going on for you. I kind of like Monica's picture on her Zoom photo. It looks like she's raising her hand. I want to just call on Monica all the time now. Anybody else want to share anything? Oh, good. Go ahead, Beth.
So I just walked into the room and I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty excited. My son and his wife, she's coming up from Brazil. She's up here about a week and a half ago, and she's coming up again, and this time to stay. And I'm going down to my son's house to help them out, and I'm pretty excited about that.
I can hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very sweet. I've had that
Yeah.
same experience of being able to be with my son and his wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How special to have that
Yeah,
sense of family
very,
connection
very
and the
beautiful.
opportunity to support and contribute.
Yeah, they have a need, and hey, here I am.
Yeah, very cool. All right. Anybody else? All right, then you're, oh, is that, I can't quite see. Is this, there's a hand.
Oh,
Go ahead, Mary.
There you go.
Mary Sue.
Yeah, go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Jim. When I did the self-connection, you asked us to open our eyes to notice the lasting objects in the room. And then I noticed a very precious artwork my youngest son did when he was little. And that was a long time ago. And that made me emotional. I will show you what it is now. So everybody get ready to see me. Isn't this a nice mask?
It's a wonderful mask.
My youngest son in grade 2, he did it. So
Oh.
it really made me emotional. He's big now.
How precious. Very
Yeah.
precious.
There are hearts being put up on
Oh.
different people's screens. I really enjoyed it too.
Okay.
And yeah, thank you for doing
And
it.
then the amazing thing is that once I put this up as a show to my small group, and one of my small group member is an artist, and she said she took a picture of me and then she'll send me the picture. So that was a special connection to my
Oh.
small group today.
Very
Thank you.
Oh, is it possible to see your face as well?
There it is.
Now you see.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Okay, that's
Oh, it really does
Thank
make a
you.
difference in terms of a sense of connection to be able to see someone's face. Thank you.
All right. So unless there's anybody else that's been waiting for the chance to know that I was just about to transition and you wanted to wait till the very last minute before you said something, this is the very last minute. Going once, no pressure. Going twice, there'll be more opportunities later. Okay, we're gonna move on.
I think I was going to take that going twice.
Yes,
So,
okay.
so I'm the artist who was with Mary and Ellen in the small group, and I took a screenshot of the mask, and I was telling her that I teach folk and tribal art from India and across the world,
Oh,
and I've done a workshop to teach masks of the world.
wow,
And so my intention today is, because it's the start of my day, I'm going to be making that mask with my daughter and sending a picture to Mary.
very cool.
Sweet.
How wonderful.
Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody who chatted in the chat room. My heart is really, how to say, joyful and grateful.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, everyone, for
Thank you, Jim.
yeah.
Thank you, Puva.
So in this moment of
Thank you, Mary.
in this moment of transition now, just allow yourself to pay attention, like we did in the exercise. Things are shifting to a different gear, so to speak. We go from kind of this interactive thing to just a few minutes of Jim and Jory talking about some important aspects of nonviolent communication. Just notice what it's like to be in a transition zone and reawaken your connection to why you're here, what you're hoping for. And we'll start playing. So today's class is about emergent connection. What do I do if? So this was inspired by what was going on last week in our class, because at the very end, we started getting these very natural questions that start coming up when people are beginning to get interested in not just thinking about NVC, but actually practicing NVC in real life. Those are two different things, right? And so when you're really ready to practice and then maybe even try it out, you start getting feedback from people. And it opens up the question, what do I do if? What do I do if I can't get if my kid won't brush their teeth and I want them to, or my husband won't take the garbage out, or all these kind of everyday little conflicts that emerge. How can I use NVC there? Or maybe you're thinking in terms of, what do I do if there's something going on in me? Like there's a goal that I have that I'm not making any progress towards, or maybe it's something that's about the whole world, there's some kind of social change initiative that you'd like to be involved in. And so all of these are places that we can utilize nonviolent communication. And so let's talk a little bit about the main strategies of how we get ready to do our nonviolent communication practice in the real world. And so there are, and this is building on what Allison mentioned at the very beginning, that there's that nonviolent communication. Marshall talked about this idea of spiritual clarity. So let me say something about, let me give you, stop for just a second. Let me give you a little quote from Marshall that might help you, Allison, to understand where we're pointing to. when Marshall is talking about spiritual clarity. This is from Marshall's little book. It's a little booklet called Practical Spirituality. Would you read the quote in blue there?
I'll try. Hard to read that. I think it is important that people see that spirituality is at the base of nonviolent communication, and that they learn the mechanics of the NVC process with that in mind. In other words, we're saying that we remember that it's not a mechanical process, but it takes some learning.
Yeah. And so the way we usually talk about it is in terms of getting clear on intention as a first step in the spiritual clarity. And there's 3 other things that we'll talk about today before we start practicing some more. Number 1 is to create a quality of connection in order to support compassionate giving and receiving. So if that's what you want, is to create a quality of connection that supports compassionate giving and receiving, it's the perfect time to use nonviolent communication. If you have an intention to just get your way, or to punish the other person, or to maybe sell the car and no matter what cost, or you can have, there's 10 billion intentions that you could have, and those don't always fit with this intention of NVC. So this is the first thing to consider. Do I really want to connect right now? And if I do connect, what's the goal of that connection? And so in nonviolent communication, at least as I understand it, it's to create a quality of connection that supports compassionate giving and receiving. And Marshall talked about how important it is to remember this every day, often. And so many of us have developed spiritual practices to support us in cultivating this intention. Things like meditation, gratitude journal, mindful walks in nature, reading Rumi or some other poet that you really enjoy, reading some other kind of heart-opening reading your favorite scriptures, whatever works for you to help you to remember why you'd want to use nonviolent communication in the first place. So I'll just pause there and see if there's anybody who has, especially you, Allison, if anybody has any questions about this piece. I see you unmuted, Allison, but I don't hear you yet.
Yes.
Okay.
I think you mentioned a book of Marshall's, a little book. Did you mention?
Yep, it's called Practical Spirituality.
Oh, good, great.
Yeah, and it's only about, I don't know, maybe 45, 50 pages long. And it's basically question and answer format. So it's as if you're in a little workshop with Marshall, and the topic of NVC and spirituality has come up, and he's going through what comes up for him about this topic.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And you can get that through CNVC's bookstore. They got that open again now, and also through Puddle Dancer Press, and probably any bookstore. You can order it from your local mom and pop. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, so Jim, are you suggesting boundaries here when you say that first you want to be, maybe somebody you want to connect to, or a situation you want to connect to, or you want to go elsewhere, or just being yourself? Or
I wouldn't use the word boundary myself, but I would say I would want to know what my intention is in the communication I'm about to have. Just kind of remind myself whether I want to be in alignment in this particular communication with the purposes of NVC, which is to create a quality of connection. And here's an example of when I might not want to do that. So we live in a neighborhood here in Maui. It's very rural. And there's one particular neighbor who doesn't really control his dogs. His dogs are pretty much free to run around wherever they want to run. And so when those dogs approach me and they're barking their heads off, and maybe there's 4 of them at a time, I'm not so interested in connecting with them. And I don't really feel too much like being I don't think they're going to give me anything compassionately. I don't want to give them anything compassionately. All that I'm interested in that moment is protection. So I might bark back.
Yeah.
Or I might, pretend like I'm going to pick up a rock or something that sends a signal to the dog
Mhm.
to stay away.
Or do what I did yesterday, scream, and the person who owns them came and got 'em.
Yeah. So that's the different intention. That's the intention to protect rather than the intention to
Mhm.
connect.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think of emotional protection a lot of times when I don't really want to connect with somebody, or it's like, whatever. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm
Yes.
either too sensitive or blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I tell myself, I don't have the resources to connect right now. So in order to protect the relationship, I'm going to back off and get a good night's sleep or take a walk or whatever
Yeah.
in order
Yeah.
for me to give
Mhm.
myself empathy before I move into a dialogue with somebody else.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
Okay, moving on to the second little piece here, which is from intention, we move to attention. And the question here is, what's actually happening right now? That's the exercise that we did at the beginning, the self-connection exercise, to really ramp up our attention in order to cultivate presence. This saves us sometimes the temptation of bicycling off into the future about what we want to happen, or usually it's what we don't want to be happening, or to stay focused on the past and build our case about what the other person has done wrong. So none of those two things are not presence. Presence is what's going on actually right now, starting with connecting to my own feelings and needs and opening up myself to connect with empathically to what might be going on in somebody else. So that's the attention piece. So we move from intention to attention. Intention is the inward facing path, so to speak.
Mhm.
Attention is the outward facing path. But there's a mixed in with some inward stuff, because we might also really want to know what we're feeling and what we're needing. So that's what we mean by attention. So let's stop again and see if there's anybody that has any questions about attention. Okay, so you can kind of see the spiritual flavor of attention too, right? So many of the tools available to us now in terms of mindfulness are tools that help us to cultivate presence. So then the third piece is focus. So now that I've got my intention on what's actually happening right now, maybe first in the world, but then to begin to focus on what feelings are arising in me, maybe make some guesses about what feelings might be arising in the other person or people involved. And then this question, who needs what right now? Those two focuses will help me to support the intention to connect. So that's the focus. Anybody have any questions or comments about that? Okay.
Jim, could we have this? May we have the screen share again?
You bet. We're going to go back to it.
Sure, thank you.
And then the third piece is what happens? What's the natural consequence of cultivating this intention, cultivating this quality of attention, and this focus? What's the effect? Well, we opened outcome. It reduces demand energy in us, and sometimes even eliminates it. And it shifts us to a consideration of what can make life more wonderful from now on. So we get to go from presence to a really open-hearted experience of what's possible from now on to make life more wonderful for everybody involved. And what make life wonderful means is to contribute to needs. That's how we know life is more wonderful, is that the needs that are hungry get fed. So that's what we mean by making life more wonderful. I'll pause one last time and I'll put the screen back up. Anybody have any questions on openness to outcome? So all four of these elements is what we kind of nicknamed the 0 step. Marshall called it spiritual clarity. Other trainers might call it different things. You might call it something else. Whatever works for you, that can be like an anchor or a callback, a pointer to what's really important to you in this moment in terms of connecting with yourself, connecting with your partners or your neighbors or even the dogs that are barking at you. Go ahead, Arpita.
Yes. The doubt that's coming up for me is the tools that I use to really connect with my feelings and to the here and now takes a long time. Sometimes it runs into weeks. And because it's almost like a vortex of needs. What is on the top may actually feed into another need, and that process takes time. And many a times what I've noticed is for the other person, there is this a need to cater to the realness of the moment before life takes over. So how do I balance these two things?
Well, the first step is to ask the question that you just asked. Just to have that's a new intention, right? Your intention is to find the balance for you. And so that's where it always begins with intention. So I love your question. I love the inquiry.
And there's no one simple answer other than really traveling in your own experience and seeking the balance.
It seems to me, Arpita, that an important part of this 0 step is also to remember Marshall's advice to take your time, especially when we're first learning the process, to take as much time as you need. So what if it takes 2 weeks to connect to your feelings? That's 2 weeks that are very well spent, because 2 weeks of self-inquiry is a lot healthier than 2 weeks of jackling somebody or attacking them, So it's a wonderful place to put attention. Is what's going on in my body? What's going on with my needs? What am I unpeeling in terms of my feelings and needs in relationship to this particular thing? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes sense. And it's also opening up some possibilities I could explore to keep that momentum alive for us, and also ask the person about their apprehensions. And yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And when it's dragging on, it's taking a really long time, it's very, very helpful to call a friend who you trust and really seek the companionship that can support you to feel really safe to explore deeper.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're going to play as soon as we finish answering these questions. We're going to start playing with role plays. And with role plays, you get a chance to practice in a way that's not as hot as real life practice. So if your wife is the one that stimulates you, you get to do a role play with your best friend who's playing the role of your wife, or maybe you're playing the role of your wife. And then it kind of slows things down and you get some feedback, and then it just kind of helps to prepare your brain for the real thing. Yeah,
it's the beauty of being part of a community. This is a community, and although you may not see each other more frequently than on this screen, we are connected to each other. And that's one of the benefits sometimes of the breakouts, that you make a connection there, and you maybe decide to have a weekly call with that person, just not waiting for it to get too hard.
Yeah. Is that complete for you now, Arpita, or is there more?
Now I feel very complete, and many beautiful reminders. So thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Glad you're here.
Yeah.
Leslie?
I'm having trouble with openness to outcome. I thought I was open to outcomes, but when the outcome is that the other person shuts you down or gets angry or doesn't like the conversation, or it's really hard to be open.
Yeah, so you're noticing that life gives you lots of opportunities for you to discover the edge of your openness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe when we get responses like that, we're not, we need to notice that we're not open to the response we got, that it creates a whole new cycle of feelings and needs or something like that.
Yeah, when we're not open, it's a signal that we need empathy, we need support. We can't always do it alone. So that's, to me, that's what that means when that happens.
Absolutely.
And the direction I go.
That's exactly right. And it's often if we notice that any of, let me put it back up on the screen again. If we notice that any of these pieces, whether it's intention, attention, focus, or effect, seem to be edgy for us in a moment, that's information. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. It just means that we can answer this question, who needs what, by I need empathy. I don't feel open to outcome. I want it my way or the highway, and just to first notice that's what's going on and name it for yourself. I don't feel open to outcome. I feel addicted, as those are the words that Marshall often used, addicted or attached to a particular outcome. And you might even name the outcome. I really want to watch this particular TV show and nobody else wants to watch it, or I really want pizza for dinner and nobody else wants pizza. And I want to stamp my feet in frustration. I just name it for myself. And then that helps me to then allow myself to feel it rather than to resist it. And this is actually where I notice my edge of openness is can I allow myself to feel these uncomfortable feelings?
And not just to wallow in them, but to acknowledge them, allow them to be without resistance. Otherwise, we're just pushing our mind away. Yeah.
How does that land for you, Leslie?
Well, I still have questions. Like, I was at this retreat and the leader was using, I thought they were using some NVC, a little bit about needs and thinking about the needs of the other person. So I was talking to them afterwards and asking them if they'd studied NVC, and they had. And they said, and I said, well, it would be really nice to have more of that, like with the feelings, because I think a really important part is that anger or any of those feelings aren't really wrong. And in spiritual circles, so many people think they're wrong. But when you realize you can find the need that's there. And the response was that, well, that's kind of secular and this is spiritual. So then I said, well, Marshall said that, NVC actually was spiritual. So I want to encourage you to think about that.
That's a wonderful, that's a very interesting response that something is this distinction between spiritual and secular. Of course, I wasn't there, but what's your guess, Leslie? You were there. What do you imagine the need is around that distinction?
I didn't imagine a need. I imagined a misperception on the person's part.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. And I suggested she could just share it in terms of experience, strength of hope of what helped her, because she said NVC had helped her.
Yeah.
But that didn't land so well either.
Right.
So in that kind of conversation, I don't think it's a need. I think it's a misperception.
A misperception, yeah. So what if I'm misperceived, let's say that I'm misperceiving something. So when you say misperception, you don't think it's intentional. You're just sensing that there's a need for clarity or information that's not there. Is that right?
Well, I feel like the person didn't want any information or clarity because they thought they understood.
Yeah. So in other words, then maybe the need they're trying to meet in that moment is clarity. They're really, really clear. on what's important about the distinction. Maybe it supports them in feeling safe or something like that. We don't really know because they're not here to ask, but that's the invitation that I work on. Is if I notice myself hung up in that I'm not open to outcome with something, then first I get curious about my needs, and then I might get curious about their needs. And that can often help me to start weaving towards connection, because I want to live in a world, and I'm not saying this is true or false, but it's just the way that I want to see the world. I want to live in a world where everybody's behavior, every single one of them, is in the service of meeting a need. Doesn't mean that it's going to be successful in meeting the need, doesn't mean that it's a great strategy to meet the need, but that's why we do everything that we do, is we think it's going to meet our needs. And I want to get curious about what's the need they're trying to meet, because if I don't like the way they're doing it, and I can connect to the need, maybe then I can offer an alternative that meets their need as well as my need. So that's the whole idea of having a needs consciousness, is if I stay connected with needs rather than strategies to do this or to not do that, then I'm much more likely to live in a world of compassionate giving and receiving. Does that make sense?
Okay, so if you'd been in that situation and you wanted to convey the information that NVC could be looked at as a spiritual thing, and that in addition to talking about needs, you could talk about emotions and how they point towards needs, so that, because my need was from contribution, so that the people in the group didn't continue to think that their negative emotions were bad. What would you have said?
Maybe what you just said.
Yeah.
The way you just said it. Maybe the only thing that might have been missing, I'm not saying it was missing, but what's the request that you have?
I made the request, which was that she talks about negative emotions and how they're not bad and we don't have to push them away or get stuck in them.
So that's
the need underneath.
So that's likely to be close to a request. But unless the whole group is assembled at the moment that you make that request,
It's a wish.
it's a wish. Because she can't do what you want.
Yeah, it's a wish for the future. It's a wish for
the future. That's not a request. So then when you say what you wanted to say, what's your request? If you wanted to make a request instead of a wish, what would it be?
And I don't know how to do that. How?
Okay, so why don't you...
The first thing that comes up for me is to ask the person, how is that for you? Is that something you're willing to do?
That's
Something
one
along
line.
those lines to really kind of seal the deal there.
That's what we call a feedback request. How does it sound?
That's good.
And
that's good.
And then the other option is we call it a confirmation request, which is, I'm really scared. I'm not saying that this was what you would say. It's probably just how I'd say it. I'm really scared that we're only getting half of the formula here today. We're getting the needs, and I'm really appreciating that we have a focus on needs. But I'm really longing to live in a world where we also honor and accept feelings. So what are you hearing is important to me?
That not only needs, but feelings are important.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
And so then we go on from the dialogue from there. So we're building connection one little piece at a time, starting with a confirmation request about what's important to me to make sure that message sent was message received. And if we're confident that the message was accurately received, then we can go for a feedback request. And then if we find out that they're in harmony with our request, then we can come up with a next step. So when we I'm willing to agree that when we come back to the large group, I'm willing to raise my hand as a signal for you to talk about this. If that's what you would like, would that be helpful for you? So anyway, then you move into collaboration space.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Okay, that's starting to make sense. Thank you.
Okay, great. One more question from Rob, and then we'll start practicing.
Yeah, just a request, for embodiment, for my need for embodiment, it would help me, I don't know if you can do this, is to copy what you got there into the chat. Then I could copy it out into my notebook, and then,
Sure, I can do
I
that.
have it verbatim. And because,
Great.
yeah, this is really helpful. I know you've done the 0 step many, many times. And yeah, so it seems more valuable than ever, the more times
Good.
we see it.
I'm really glad.
And I'll bet
Yes.
you've done the 0 step many, many times too, because that's our nature.
Yeah.
In fact, it's not, it's so much our nature that it's where we live almost all the time. It's not an extraordinary state. Every time you wake up in the morning with your first bit of awareness, aren't you just curious what's going to happen today?
Or at least open to it.
Yeah, I mean, at least you opened your eyes, you know, rather than staying in bed with the covers over your head, which is fine to do if that's what you need to do. But you know, I want to highlight that this is it's not an extraordinary state of NBC enlightenment that we're seeking. It's actually the ordinary experience that most of us have most of the time. The only time that we're not in 0 step is because we need empathy, because we got triggered.
We got scared. We got angry.
I can remember years of being in Fix-It Jackal, though, you know, just like very quickly. Bop, 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 bop.
You must have had a similar education to me, Rob.
Yeah, I was just thinking
Yeah.
how much educated to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, I went to the same high school that Marshall went to in Detroit.
Oh, that explains everything then. Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
All right.
Okay.
So the next step is to think about the what ifs in your own life. So, you know, maybe Leslie wants to keep working on what happened at the retreat. Maybe you want to work on something that happened with a family member, but you're curious, what would I do if? So the next step is to just write, what do I do if? And then write down an observation that you'd like to have more NVC skills in order to handle. So you're just going to end up with one descriptive sentence. What do I do if? And then fill in the blank. And I'll be quiet for about 3 or 4 minutes while you think about it and write it down. And you can write down more than one, of course, as many as you want. What do I do if? About 1 more minute. So you can finish the sentence that you're writing. You can always add more later. So what you've been practicing is the 0 step, for one thing. I see your hand, Kay. So even just asking this question, what do I do if, is a pointer towards the 0 step. It shows that you want to connect. It shows that you have an intention in that direction. It shows that you have a longing for more presence and openness. You're not stuck on some previous way of handling it. You're open to outcome. And you're shifting your focus to feelings and needs. And you're practicing the skill of observing or observation. So check what you wrote and see if there's any opinion or evaluation or moral judgment that snuck into it. So, for example, if I wrote down, what do I do if my insubordinate employee doesn't do what I tell them to do in a timely way? Well, that's got some evaluation mixed in with it. So I'm just going to cross off the word insubordinate and timely. Those are both evaluations. Timely according to whom? He might have a different idea of time than I do. And insubordinate is clearly a diagnosis that I've made of him. So a much clearer what if would be, what do I do if the man who works with me doesn't do what I ask him to do in a way, when doesn't fulfill his agreement to do what I ask him to do? That might be a clearer way to express it. So there's no judgment mixed in. Hey, you have a question?
Yes, I'm actually wanting some help with the observation part. So I don't know if this is a good time to ask that or not.
Perfect time, perfect time.
Okay, so I have a friend that we exchange empathy. And so I'm noticing that I get annoyed when she does something, and I'm trying to find a way to speak it in a as observation. And so it's basically, I think it's when she just continues to she's making evaluation after evaluation or assumption after assumption. And so that's my judgment, but I'm trying to find,
so is the
just a factual way of describing it.
Yeah, is the check to see if this is what it is. I'm talking with my empathy buddy, and I don't know what to do if she's using more words than I enjoy, or different words than I enjoy.
Yeah. Okay. I actually did start with that, and I wasn't sure if that worked. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And
you know if it works by the way it lands for you. I watched your head go up and down. It was like, yeah.
and Fernie?
Hi, I just want to make sure that I understand the observation, that I'm not making just judgment.
Okay.
On this one, I said, what do I do if my coworkers are not contributing 100% at work. So it's kind of similar to you, but so it does that like give judgment?
Yeah, contributing 100%, that's you're catching, that's probably a little bit of a judgment, huh?
Okay.
Well,
So how would I
only you know. I mean, if there's, a list of things to be done and it doesn't get done, then.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
probably getting closer to the observation is, my coworker said that they would do X before next Tuesday. And as far as I can tell, it hasn't been done yet.
Okay.
And it's Wednesday.
Yeah. and so the idea is, rather than making something general and vague,
Mhm.
observations
Okay.
by their nature are
Concrete.
concrete. They're kind of like requests. They're concrete, specific. They have a
Okay.
context of place and time. And so
Okay.
something like that might help.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mhm. Thanks for your question.
And the reason for that, by the way, the theoretical reason, is that the more we are specific with what our observation is, it helps the other person's brain to make a picture of what we're making a picture of. And it's less likely to stimulate resistance. But if I use a word like always or never, then their
Mhm.
brain's going to get busy with finding counterexamples. Well, how could you say it's never? Because I did it at least 3 times in the last 6 weeks. So don't give me that always or never crap. So you stimulate resistance. But if you say, yesterday, I thought you were going to get me that email by 4, and now it's 9 o'clock in the morning, I haven't gotten it yet. So that's what I want to connect about. Does that make sense, Fernie?
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Fernie.
Carolyn?
Okay, I'm unmuted. So I just wanted to say, this is all interesting and I can see how it would be really good to practice and helpful. But one thing that came up for me just now is just the idea that all of this isn't something that you would think that you would necessarily need to do in the moment when it's all happening. Is that right? And that you might want to take some time to, you would, especially if you're not very familiar with it, you'd want to take some time to think about it and then and then come back to it.
That's a self-awareness when you realize that you need a moment to turn the attention on yourself, to give yourself the strength, and then also that you use your discernment as to whether that person can even hear you right now.
Yeah. Take all the time you need, especially honor. I love it when we remember to honor our learning curve, right? Why would, if I'm teaching my 4-year-old to swim, or actually, I think our first kid, Jiva, I think he started swimming lessons at 6 months old.
Yeah.
We didn't start by having him crawl up to the high dive and jump in. We put his feet in the water and splashed around a little bit first. And then we blew bubbles and whatever the little teeny tiny steps are to help people get comfortable with new strategies. NVC is a system of strategies. And so little bits of practice really can help us to navigate our learning curve. So I like your intuition there, Carolyn.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Gustavo.
Thank you. I was thinking in the case of Fernie says that the observation could, and it's also broader question. The observation could be with ourselves as well, right? Because I can say, or she can say, for example, I don't feel comfortable with the way that my partners are contributing to the company. Is that would be an observation?
It could be. Yes, it can be an observation, but it's probably not how I'm going to open the conversation with the other person.
It's not very connecting.
I've never had very much success in my primary relationship telling her what I think about her, even if I take responsibility for the thought. But it can help me.
No, but sorry, but yeah, I was telling more in the case of the 0 step when you are checking with yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
It's more that I'm not saying that you are gonna say that observation to the other person. I'm saying that you are observing that in yourself.
Yes,
I
that's
don't feel comfortable the way that my partners are contributing to the company, and then I can go from there
absolutely.
as
That
a
makes a
0
lot of
step.
sense. That
That's
makes a
what
lot of sense as an observation that you can use
Yeah.
for self-empathy. Perfect.
I love the way you said it, an observation of myself.
Yeah.
To be really connected to what observing that's going on inside me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Rob?
Yeah, I was just thinking about, what do I do? And, I've gone through this for years when my daughter is moody and I can't get her out of bed. And my daughter's in her 30s. Because I fall into often getting moody myself. And, but I've worked with it over the years. I do okay, but it still is a challenge.
Yeah.
A challenge for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we have an intention for something, for someone to do something, and they don't want to do it, we have a few choices. Most of them are not very helpful. You pick them up and you stand them up and you insist, you argue and all of that. But just to be able to find peace with, this is not a 2-year-old, this is a 30-year-old. And you can stand them up or make them do it. But as Marshall said so well, and they'll make you sorry that you did.
It actually brings up, it's actually a great transition to the next slide. And then we'll work with some of these that you talked about today. So no matter what your what if is, what do I do if is, there's only 3 possibilities with NVC. The brilliance of Marshall Rosenberg was his ability to simplify something that seems exceedingly complex. But NVC is really easy. It's just these 4 components: observation, feeling, need, and request, and then 3 basic strategies. Number 1, self-connection. So to apply, so you notice that your 30-year-old daughter is in bed and it's 11:45 in the morning, and you notice you feel scared or whatever it is for you, and maybe concerned. And the need is for her well-being, and your intuition is this is not a great time to talk about it, because she's probably, I'm just guessing, she's hungry, she's been asleep for a while, she needs to kind of wake up, so I'm probably not going to bring this up now. So basically you're doing some kind of a self-connection process to get yourself back to 0. So that then you can open yourself to whatever life presents, and then perhaps an opportunity will arise at some point where you can practice one of the other 2 strategies, which of course are either empathy. Start with empathy. I wonder what's going on with my kid. I'm telling myself they're moody, so I'm guessing maybe they're feeling sad and they're apprehensive about something, and so maybe their need is for, what would it be? It gets really stuck. I can't figure out what she might need. Well, what would I need? What do I need when all I want to do is sleep? Well, I need rest. Yeah, it's not really rest. I've got enough rest. What's going on for me? Okay, so I wonder if she just needs some love and acceptance. I don't know if that's what she needs, but I just, when I connect to that as her need, then I just notice my body starts to relax. I get curious if there's a way that maybe I can contribute to love and acceptance. So my self-connection leads to some empathy for the other person involved. And then I follow my intuition, maybe, to honesty. Do I want to talk about it now? And then I use self-connection and empathy as my guardrails for how I'm talking. So today I was with a friend, and it was clear that I had done something that had upset them. And they started to let me know that they didn't like what I did. And I started noticing myself getting a defensive, wanting to explain why I did what I did and build my case. And as soon as I started to notice the words coming out of my mouth, the next thing out of my mouth was, I'm pretty sure anything I say next is not going to make things any better. So I'm just going to go and take a break.
I've heard that before.
So I actually went into the bathroom and closed the door and meditated for just a couple of minutes to get myself a little bit closer to zero. It literally took me hours to get back there, an hour or so, to get back to zero. But at least I had the self-connection to realize that this is not a time for my honesty. I was very attached to an outcome. I wanted them to see my point of view. And so that's what was motivating me to slow things down and stay with my self-connection until I could attempt to empathize with what might have been going on in them. So this is always the answer to whatever you wrote down on your question, on your piece of paper. These are the three ways you answer it in the order that makes the most sense to me. That I start with connecting to my own feelings and needs, maybe my own observation, perhaps even do enough work to get clear on my request. And then once I'm grounded in my own self-connection, to then get curious, what's going on in them? See if I can find the common ground. Empathy is about finding the common ground, because once I connect to their feelings and needs, I humanize the other person, because I have the same feelings and needs as they do. So I'm guessing the other person, maybe they're feeling hurt and angry. And I'm guessing maybe they need inclusion. I don't know if that's true or not, but I notice my body starting to relax even more, just seeing that, well, gosh, if it were me, I'd probably feel the same way. I love it when I'm included. I love it when I get invited. Yeah. And then I kind of go back to some self-connection. I start feeling sad. I feel sad that I missed an opportunity. So I go into some mourning. I missed an opportunity to invite because I got distracted. And I so value inclusion and invitation and collaboration. And I missed this opportunity and I mourn that. And so from that place of being more grounded in my empathy for myself and my empathy for this other person, then I can shift to some honesty. And maybe we'll play that out here in just a minute. But let me just see, I see that there's one other hand up.
Yeah.
And let's see what that's about. I think it's Gustavo. Nope, it's gone. I guess we answered your question. Do you still have a question, Gustavo?
Yeah, I was wondering, but probably it's not in the moment that but I was thinking in that because I always have like I just always struggle with the fact that we are let me talk about myself. I have trouble identifying needs when it's about my kids. We used to say, well, I have the need for their well-being, but that's not really a need. It's not my need. You know what I mean? And I think the need that we usually want to meet when with our kids, it's our need of contribution, basically.
That makes sense. Yeah. And I want to actually say something about well-being. Marshall made a big deal. Let's say my evaluation. Marshall made a big deal that needs are personal, right? That I have a need to contribute. The one exception to this purely intrinsic and personal need is well-being. That well-being is a universal need that is always shared. We usually don't go there. It's too painful. to actually allow ourselves to connect to well-being. Because what it implies, Gustavo, is that my well-being, my need for well-being is not met if anybody's need for well-being is not met. And since there's 8 billion of us, and 1 billion of us live on less than $1 a day, how could I ever experience well-being? How could I ever experience well-being when right now thousands of people are in solitary confinement, when thousands of people are under threat from nuclear war or other kinds of war? So Marshall said, if you really understand nonviolent communication, you would always be weeping. You would be weeping for joy about the needs that are satisfied, or you would be weeping in despair because the need for well-being is not met. So
But it frightens me, Jim, because I'm resonating with everything what you're saying, but I'm also afraid that need could be taken a different way, because sometimes we think that what the well-being for somebody else is something that is probably that person do not think that that's the well-being for them. You know what I mean? So we can use it as an excuse to intervene in some life and control the life of other people, and with the excuse that I know I'm contributing with your well-being, but wait a minute, but you think this is my well-being, but it's not necessarily. I don't resonate with that. So that's what scares me.
I get the fear.
Go into.
I think I get it. Let me see if I got it. Let me see if I can reflect it. That you notice that sometimes you have a tendency, let's say, to think that you know a strategy for well-being that one of your kids or all of your kids should do. And so you're actually using the need for well-being, but you're actually confusing it with a strategy in that moment. And that worries you because you don't want to live in that world where you're imposing power over with a strategy. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I like your awareness.
And I see that a lot in I'm a teacher also. So I see that a lot in teachers, and I see that a lot in parents.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's
There are a couple of need words that are particular that I want to bring awareness to, that are particularly possible to fall into this trap. So let's just notice them really quickly here. So for example, the need for respect under protection at about the 4 o'clock part of the clock here. I think my need is respect, but what I'm really telling myself is I need you to respect me, or I need you to consider me, or I need you to have mutuality for me, or I need support. So anytime you have the for me that comes after the need, then that's a clue that you're mixing up need and strategy in that moment. Nothing wrong with that. It's just not going to get you what you want.
Yeah, it's a lack of clarity for yourself.
Exactly. You might just say something like, honey, what you asked me to say, tell me that you need me to support you.
Jim, I need you to support me.
I support you all the time. I can make a list of 5,000 ways. And so we're off into the races building my case of how I have supported you.
And I'm building my case about how he never does, and he doesn't even know it, and he's not listening to me.
And there's probably one specific thing that she would really like support with right now.
Yeah.
And so if I had my giraffe ears on and she said, say the same thing again. I need you to support
me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So something's going on. Is there something specific that I can do?
Yeah. Yeah. Would you go finish washing the dishes?
Yeah. There you go. So by me making an empathic guess, in this case, I was not guessing feelings or needs necessarily. I was actually making an empathic guess about her request. And that was, you know, it was like an open-ended question. Is there something specific that you would like some support with right now?
Yeah, he's guiding the conversation toward getting more needs met at less cost to others.
Yeah. So that's how you can transform it when you have the thought that other people are mixing up needs and strategies. You can use that first as an opportunity to self-connect and then to empathize with what might actually serve the need that they've identified. Purva?
Yeah, I just had a request for you to repeat that statement. When you have something before a need, it's not a request, it becomes a strategy.
Yeah, if I say something like, I need you to support me. So I use a pronoun somewhere in the sentence. The pronoun is the
So
clue.
would it? Okay, so using a pronoun before the need
Or after.
is the clue.
Yeah.
Or after
Yeah.
is the clue that it's a strategy and not a need. Yeah, I just wanted to write it as a statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
thank you.
yeah, and just that phrase, I need you, is something to catch yourself with. When I hear myself even thinking, I need you, I stop and I ground myself. Oh, I want something, you know, and I do some exploration there rather than come through with a demand, which is likely actually to, there's less likelihood that I'm going to get what I want.
Yeah.
Because I'm demanding and the other person's likely to either push back or push away.
I am astonished right now. Go ahead, Purva. Go ahead, Purva.
Sorry, I think I'm going further a little bit with what Gustavo was saying about children. So then in that sense, I feel I'm forever adding pronouns in my conversation with needs in regards to my daughter, that I need you to clean up the room and I need you to, you know, whatever, take care of XYZ before you can do this. So then where, I guess it's a whole different conversation, you know, where do you, to give you a very live conversation right now,
I think I can answer.
vacations going
I think
on.
I can answer your question, Purva. The place for the pronouns is in the request, not in the needs. So I'm really needing support. Would you be willing to spend 10 minutes helping me to put the groceries away? So keep your pronouns and your names in the observation and in the request, but not in the feelings and the needs. And that'll help. Okay, so I want you
Can I
guys to
add
go back
something?
and talk to one another. So
Can I add something, Jim, real quick?
okay.
It's just that for to have a little more clarity on needs are not related to persons, places, times, or objects.
Right.
Needs are universal. They are not related to anything.
Right. You
So
got
when
it.
it's related to anything, it's not a need.
Right. You got it. Needs make no reference to a particular person doing a particular thing at a particular time. You got it. Okay, so let's go back to small groups and talk about what you learned today. Look at what you wrote down as your what if, what do I do if, and then talk a little bit about either how you can self-connect when in that moment, how you could use empathy in that moment, or how you could use honesty in that moment. You only have about 3 or 4 minutes because time got away from us. We had such good questions today. Really appreciate the questions. But let's go back and you'll have again about 11 minutes, 12 minutes, and to share how you could apply your what if to either self-connection, empathy, or honesty based on what you've learned today. And we'll see you back here in about 10 minutes, 11 minutes. Here we go. The recording back on now because I forgot. So these calls are recorded and they show up on 2 websites, either YouTube, our YouTube channel, which is right on the edge of 200 people, whatever that means. I don't even care, but it's just kind of fun watching the numbers go up. So if you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll get a note when a notification if you want to that there's a new video that's been uploaded, or you can just use our website to do that. I did write a book called Pathways to Nonviolent Communication that you can order from your local bookstore or go get it at your library or whatever, or you can order it from the big booksellers like Amazon or whatever. And this link here will tell you more about the book if you just put that into your favorite search engine. I think that's enough about that. I did want to tell you one other fun thing. I've been playing with some of these chat bots that you've been hearing about, like Chat GPT, and I've been trying to find out what happens if you ask it for empathy. It's very good at advice. It's terrible at empathy. Someone who's just had a basic NVC class would be much more, might need more for empathy than the chatbot so far. But I did ask the chatbot to write me a joke, an NVC-based joke, and it made me laugh. Would you like to hear it?
Okay.
All right. Reluctantly, Siva says, okay. I love it. It's, why did the NVC trainer cross the road? To get to the other person's needs. It's a pretty good joke.
That's cute.
That's pretty cute. And so then I said to the chatbot, have you told that joke before? And it said, no, I wrote it spontaneously because of the conversation we're having right now. I don't know if that's true or not, because chatbots do lie to you all the time. But I was very touched about that. And then it's
That's
I said,
fabulous.
yeah.
Yeah, the chatbots are sort of like being at a social gathering, what opinion do you have about something? Let me hear what you have to say.
The one that I'm playing with and that I trust the most, I'm putting into the chat, is called Perplexity.ai. The reason that I like Perplexity is that it gives sources for whatever it tells you. So if you say, did Marshall Rosenberg say anything about spiritual clarity? And which you could ask, and then it'll tell you what its little search of the internet does, but it'll tell you exactly the links to the quotes where you can go check them out yourself.
Yeah, there's a piece around the credibility that this particular bot has that isn't always there for me anyway when I'm using AI.
Tomorrow I'm having a meeting with a guy that wrote a chat bot for translating difficult messages into feelings and needs. And so after the conversation I have with him tomorrow, I hope to come back and tell you more about it next week, and maybe we can help him to refine the bot. And this is to support learning and practice. That's what I'm interested in, is, to be able to, let's say you get off this call and we didn't get a chance to work on your thing. Maybe you could talk to a bot.
Yeah. How do you know you're talking to a person tomorrow and not the bot?
Yeah, you really don't. In fact, we could be bots, right? We might be actually avatars. We might actually be out taking a walk. All right, but anyway, so those are fun things. Next week, we'll continue our exploration of emergent connection, and we'll start introducing the 9 skills that we use as the basis of our way we teach nonviolent communication. We can do lots and lots of practice like we did today. And with that, I want to hear from Purva, and then we'll put you back into your small groups to say goodbye to one another, maybe set up an empathy buddy call. Purva, if you like. Purva?
I just wanted to share this little drawing I made, which stayed with me, and I'm going to make it into a nicer one. When you said bicycling into the future.
Too close. You're too close.
Oh, you know what? 1 minute, 1 minute. I just realized I'd done that. Oh, how do I? Okay, 1 second. I don't know how to do this. How do I change my camera view? Oops, sorry. Okay. I don't know if it's possible. Is it possible for you all to see?
Can you describe it
Oh,
for us?
Too close.
I basically
Good.
made a little, you know what I've done? Can somebody help? I went and changed my background to blur. Now I don't know how to get it back.
If you keep the picture close to your face, because your face is clear right now. So if you
Okay.
keep the picture
Purva,
close to your face, maybe we'll see it.
go to your video setting and just remove the blur. You can go to the video, little video that comes at the below, at the bottom, and then click on it and you'll
Okay.
find no blur.
No, so if I click on video, it's only going off and on.
No, there's a place beside the video. There's the arrow.
Okay, I got it.
up.
I got it. 1 minute, none.
Go to video settings.
Yeah, I think the blur is gone off now.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I see the ceiling.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay. All right. Now I guess you can see.
Oh, yeah.
There,
One
now
moment.
we can see it. Yeah, a little bit. There you go. Beautiful. Nice. I like it. Bicycling off
Yeah,
into the
into the
future.
future. That's good.
Yeah.
A little bike on the other side too.
I stole that line from Tara Brach, by the way. I tried to give attribution when I remember. So Tara Brach, the Buddhist teacher, used that phrase the first time I heard it.
So I want to, okay. I want to complete it by, showing the bicycling off into the future and then saying, turning the bike around and saying, it's okay, come back to the now.
Nice. And then you can make t-shirts and put them on Etsy. All right.
Oh, so cute.
All right, great. Thank you, Purva. And thank you, Jaya and Rena, for your support. I'm going to turn the recording
Yeah,
off
thank
now.
you all actually for being here and being on this path together and seeing what we can learn. Thank you,
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. Yeah, really enjoyed hanging out with you guys today. And we'll see you next week for more fun, hopefully.
And we'll open up the groups now. If you want to go, you can. And if you don't, or you end up in your group by yourself, we'll try and move you around and get you with somebody.
Okay, aloha, bye-bye.